Welcome back. Our next candidate for Missouri Attorney General is making waves on TV right now.
Joe Biden and his corrupt allies are wrecking our legal system, doing everything they can to stop President Trump and the MAGA agenda. It's time for a Missouri Attorney General who will return fire.
In his latest campaign ad, Republican Will Scharf is armed with a grenade launcher, firing at what's meant to be boxes of evidence gathered in cases against former President Trump. Originally from New York, Will Scharf is based in St. Louis County, and he is a personal attorney for the former president. He was the policy director for former Missouri Governor Eric Greitens and a U.S. prosecutor for the Eastern District of Missouri. His ad, which came out days before his boss was almost killed, is getting a lot of attention and concern from some viewers and voters hoping to cool down the charged language this campaign season. And that's where we start our conversation. You know, there's growing talk from President Biden and people on the other side of the aisle about lowering the temperature when it comes to political rhetoric and vitriol. You put out an ad before the assassination attempt on the former president, blowing up file boxes with a grenade launcher, saying it's time for a Missouri Attorney General who will return fire. What message does that send to voters, and are you adjusting that message as the campaign moves on?
I think the message it sends to voters is that I'm going to be an aggressive advocate for the MAGA agenda for President Trump. I've obviously been a lawyer representing him for almost a year now. I think given this unprecedented campaign of lawfare against President Trump, we need people who are willing and able to stand in the breach and fight back, and that's what our ad really demonstrates. And the response we've gotten from Missouri voters has been just overwhelmingly positive.
You're not the first person to do this, but to have a firearm in an ad, do you think right now maybe that's not the best message?
I think it's a perfect message in light of what the ad is really about, which is fighting back against this unprecedented campaign of lawfare against President Trump, which I think really threatens to undermine our democratic processes in this country, really the basis of our election. And it's truly been an honor to get to represent President Trump on the front lines of fighting back against those efforts.
Well, we talk about just the campaign ads and the tone of this campaign. You and your opponent are very much voicing support for the former president, but just from a Missouri citizen standpoint, what does that tell me about what you're going to do for me as a voter in Missouri?
Well, I think I have a demonstrated track record at this point of winning in court. I mean, we've won huge victories for President Trump, including at the U.S. Supreme Court. I want to bring that same sort of attitude, that same degree of excellence to the Missouri Attorney General's office. I think I can win for Missourians in courtrooms both here in Missouri and around the country, and I think my background and track record really shows that.
If former president wins another term as president, would you take a job if offered in the administration?
I'm pretty committed to Missouri at this point, and I'm looking forward to taking office, I guess, just a few weeks before he does as Missouri's next Attorney General.
What are your priorities?
So I think first and foremost, we need an Attorney General who's going to stand up for Missourians' rights and who's going to win for Missourians. I think that's absolutely essential. In terms of specific policy priorities, we have a very serious violent crime problem in this state. I think Jefferson City's inaction on that issue really for many years now is a travesty. I think it needs to be addressed. So I would put violent crime towards the top of the list. As we get around the state, we have a lot of Missourians who are deeply concerned with the state of education in this state. I've said that I want to investigate our State Department of Education, DESE. That's a department that's consistently failed to produce results despite record levels of funding. I think we need a Missouri Attorney General who's going to hold the deep state bureaucrats in Jefferson City accountable, and that's what we're going to do starting on day one.
Let's talk about violence, as you said. I mean,
Sure.
It's a major problem. Gun violence in Kansas City is a problem. We had just had a record homicide year last year, which there was one almost right before that. As Attorney General, what would you try to do to curb these deaths and curb the numbers?
Well, I think one of the most startling things we've seen out of Andrew Bailey's office was ending Eric Schmidt's Safer Streets program, which resulted in hundreds of quality felony prosecutions, including here in Kansas City. I think the Bailey administration's record on crime has been absolutely shameful. I'm a former federal prosecutor. I've prosecuted violent crime in St. Louis. I want to take much more decisive action on the crime issue. I believe that if we don't solve the violent crime issue, particularly in our cities, but increasingly in rural areas as well, this state can't have a bright future.
What would be the first step that you would try to take to right the ship here?
I think a program like the Safer Streets program, putting AG's office personnel on the front lines of actually prosecuting violent crime is essential. I think we need more police officers on the street. I think we also need serious court reform. We have very lax bail laws. We have very lax sentencing laws in this state. all of that contributes to the problem that we're seeing play out on our streets every day.
You're a former federal prosecutor, as you said, who has to enforce federal law in the courtroom.
Sure.
As Missouri Attorney General, you'd have to enforce state law as well. If elected AG, would you support laws like Missouri's Second Amendment Preservation Act, which actually bans local law enforcement from enforcing some federal gun laws?
Yeah, I think in light of the Biden administration's overreach, really striking to the heart of Missourians' Second Amendment rights, it's absolutely essential that we have laws like SAPA. I don't see anything about SAPA that really impacts the ability of the state to address the violent crime problem. I think it's inaction by Jefferson City more than anything else, coupled with a lack of resourcing for law enforcement and for prosecution in the state, that's gotten us in the situation that we are. I think SAPA is absolutely essential. I'm always going to stand up for Missourian Second Amendment rights, but there's no reason why we can't be doing a lot more on the violent crime issue.
But telling law enforcement, hey, you could be sued for enforcing federal laws, or you could lose funding for enforcing federal laws, you support that?
I would say that law enforcement should not be violating the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding Missourians, and that's really all that SAPA does.
The platform that you're running on is very similar to that of your opponent. How do you differ from Andrew Bailey?
Well, first of all, I'm not a creature of the Jefferson City establishment. I think when you look at Andrew Bailey's career, he worked for Democrat Attorney General Chris Koster, he worked for our more moderate Republican Governor Mike Parson, and now that he's facing a primary challenge, he's trying to recast himself as a conservative. I think that Missouri voters are going to see through that. I think Missouri voters are ready for a conservative fighter and winner to protect their rights in court, and that's what our campaign offers.